Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our open office hours. We are back again with Jason, continuing our Built on Value series. And today is all about responsibility, which we've said before when we started the series that our core values seem like they're very kindergarten type reminders. But I think this one actually goes a long way, especially in the remote work world.
Yeah, this is important. And I think that's a little bit by design and good when these values feel obvious. You're like, well, yeah, duh. Would you want to work with people who are irresponsible? You're like, no, let's work with people who are responsible. But then the real work is as a team defining, hey, what does that specifically mean? And we did that and share with the team and try to keep our eyes open for when things happen. And define these values. So, hey folks, this is open office hours. I'm going to talk through this core value and what it means to us in our business. And I like this opportunity to talk to both users and customers so they know how we operate. I think some of this comes through in how we interact with customers and users. And so hopefully you find that interesting. But also it is kind of recruitment, people who are interested in working with us, directly getting hired by us or even partnering with us and stuff like that. You get a sense of who we are and how we operate behind the scenes. And so that's why we're doing these videos. But it's also open office hours. If you're here, say hi in the chat, ask any question you have, and we'll try to address it. So that said, I can dig in to my presentation and talk a little bit about these. Yeah, here's a recap of the core values. We talked already about we are all human and we do purposeful week. Those were previous weeks. If you're watching the VOD, maybe we have respect for each other and our customers, and our commitment to open source videos are available. But you can find those, on YouTube and other places. But we're gonna be talking about responsibility and how we take responsibility for our own work here today. So I guess I'll go through these slides and talk a bit, and then I'll go even deeper on some examples and things like that. So what exactly does that mean? I think it's easy to say, like I said, we want folks who are responsible. We don't want folks who are irresponsible. What does that mean? In practice, that means we manage our own time. So we do have some contractors who get paid hourly, and so they have to track their hours. But also, we have a system that we recommend and we let them do it. And it's we trust them, and it's a pretty open, it's not a draconian process. Like they have to use our exact system to do it. It's kind of track your hours and then bill your hours. But for the folks who are full-time on the team, we set a target of 35 hours a week. And it's, there's overlap in the mornings for us here in the Eastern time zone, so that everyone around the world is trying to work across 2 hours. That overlap, so we can have some overlap with folks. But other than that, it's like you manage your time, you do the work when you do it, you kind of respond when you respond. We try not to have really strong rules for all these things. And instead we focus on, so for example, do you have to get back to a Slack message within a certain amount of time? That's not a rule, but we're also respectful. And so, there's something that comes in contact with being respectful, and that works both ways. It's kind of like, hey, be respectful, reply to people when they message you. Hey, be respectful, don't message people when you suspect that they're laying in bed, going to sleep. And if it seems like there's an issue, have a conversation about it. So yeah, we don't, instead of rules, we kind of work things out, and we allow people to manage their own time. We allow them to take care of the tasks assigned to them. We do have like a Trello board, and we use Google Sheets to manage things. Our support system for technical support is very much like a ticketing system that you click get me next ticket, and it automatically tells you basically what you're working on for the next 15 to 30 minutes. But other than that, we're relatively light on project management tools. And it's, hey, we talked to you, we told you you had to do something. We kind of just expect that you have the skills to figure out how to get it done. Finding purposeful work when you're not busy. I can go into some examples, but I think like a theme of this is that this is particularly important for remote work. Like we don't live in and work in the same office. We're not looking over each other's shoulders. We're not kind of at the same table, able to see when someone is there working. And there's like a trap for some folks in remote work where, Jason gave me 2 tasks. He didn't realize how easy and simple they were. I got them done. It's 10 o'clock. I guess I did my work. I'm going to go. That's not really taking responsibility for your work, because the expectation is that you're, on a day that you're assigned to work, you're working at your computer for 7 hours or the equivalent. And so if you don't have work, it's your responsibility to come to us and ask for more work, and not the other way around. Like we're not, we call this like pooling the work from your managers above you and stuff like that. And I think that could be a burden for some people. They're like, I just want a job where I show up, I get it done, and I leave. Like this feels like a lot of work. But I think for the right kind of employee that likes working in our company, they're like, this is great. I crush the work that's easy, and then I kind of get to direct my work, and I get to work on things that are interesting, and I get to work on more important things and like move up the chain and take on more responsibility. And so, obviously we tend to, the people who work out here best have this core value of being responsible for their own work. And so they, by their very nature, take on responsibility. And then us as managers kind of manage that by making sure they don't take on too much. And that's like a better way to, for us to operate than the team that we want to. So the inverse of that, if you're not busy, we reach out to your manager. If you're too busy, it's your responsibility to reach out to your manager when you're overworked. I saw this in the corporate world. I like famously didn't work overtime. We didn't get paid for overtime back then either. Like when I was at Accenture working in the business consulting space, and everyone was like amazed, like, how do you do it? And it's like, when the manager asks me to do something, I tell them, hey, like, I'm out of time. I can't do it this week. I could do it next week. And by the way, I don't get paid for overtime. So it's not, and I was just real with them. And I was able to do that because I was a good worker that got a bunch done, and I was showing up to work and doing the stuff that was, expected of me. But this happens at our business too. And all business, the manager doesn't know exactly how long it took you to do things, how complicated, what other people are pinging you for things to do. And so, the managers can get in the mindset of just like, hey, can you do this for me? Hey, can you do this for me? Like there's an infinite number of work. The work is never done. It's always there. Like when you're done with stuff, you can find more things to do. You can always rewrite that code, write a better blog post, find something, talk a little bit longer to another customer, start building a new thing. There's lots of work. So it's if you never push back at your manager and say, hey, I can't do that because I'm only, I got to do this other stuff, or I'm not going to be here, or that kind of thing. We don't want people kind of quietly just, taking over the bleed off work for their managers. We want them to push back and then have a conversation and figure that out, and then prioritize the work. But that doesn't happen without communication. So another way this comes up is, we just played this game, and one of the cards was like Spider-Man pointing at another Spider-Man. I wish I had that meme to bring up on screen. It's like, hey, you did it, you did it, you did it. We try not to do that. Instead, like flip it. Like, how can I help with this? So if there's like an issue in marketing, the developers are around, like, can the developers help with it? If the developers made a boo-boo and marketing is kind of cleaning up, it's like, how, what can I do to help with this is like the mindset that we have, both on the team with each other, but also we take that mindset when we're interacting with our customers and with products to integrate into WordPress. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Like this idea comes into play when, for example, a customer, has an issue with another plugin or a theme or their host. Instead of pointing fingers and saying, well, like, you should go talk to your host about that, this sounds like a hosting issue. We say, well, like, what can we do with this? Is there something that we can do to help it? Like maybe we could write documentation. If you're on this host, here's the common things to think about. Here's the email to send them to get things done. What can we do on our end of this equation to try to help them, even though maybe the true issue is on the other side? And sometimes, and we always make note when we're pushing back, we say like the fastest way to get help with this issue, this error message that includes another business name in it, not ours, is to reach out to them and ask them what's happening with it. But at the same time, we're probably like the smartest people, related to your WordPress site, and our developers are smart and they can figure out what's wrong. And they're like, oh, I get that. That's a bug in this other plugin. yeah, here's how you can fix it. And I'll try to talk to the plugin and tell them that they have a bug and things like that. So we take responsibility for these things as they come up. And then another way this comes into play is when we make mistakes, we own up to it and we move on. We just had an all team meeting today, and part of the itinerary is like a list of fails. And sometimes these are funny things that happen in everyday life. Sam, I guess we don't want to out people, but yeah.
Well, like my fail was shipping my cat's medicine to an apartment I haven't lived in for like 2.5 years. Like that was my fail of the week that I woke up to this morning. So
this is a fun, like we talk about wins and fails. And so it's a fun thing to kind of like keep in touch with folks' lives. But we also have business fails. Like yesterday, I took our website down for about 15, 20 minutes because I was cowboy coding something in SQL and I pushed the wrong button and broke the site and had to repair it from a backup. So I had a little impromptu test our backup system, which seemed to work pretty well. But I owned up to it, share with the team, don't point fingers, figure out how we do it. And that happens individually within the team. And we do it as a business. We've had, if our website goes down for a couple minutes, that's kind of bad for us. There are some aspects of our website that people rely on. So, we feel bad for customers. They can't. And sometimes in our software, we've had very serious security issues, kind of other bugs that are affecting people's websites. And while technically in our license text, it will say limited liability, I forget the exact wording, maybe our legal team that doesn't really exist can scroll it on the bottom of the page. But it's like, we're not responsible for like what happens to your website running our software. It's really your website at the end of the day. That all said, when we make a mistake and like a big security issue or a bug is affecting sites, we own up to it right away. We try to, do everything we can to get you back to square, to explain what's happening, to help people transition, to help people deal with like, whatever may happen because of those issues. So yeah, those are some ways that that comes into play.
Right. Copyflight had a comment that respect seems to be an important value to make things better. And that is the next open office hours main focus, is our value of being respectful. So yes, it is an important value. It's on the list.
That one's important. I don't want to get ahead of myself. That one is important. Like we
respect. That's the one you thought you were talking about today.
I know. So I'm ready to talk about them, but I'll talk about it in a couple of weeks. Yeah, it is like how we work together. Some people see respect as a thing that's like supposed to be given to them. Like I deserve respect for all these things that I've done. And that's not like the active version of respect that we have. It's more about how you treat each other in the moment. So I'm not respecting your education or your resume or the stuff that you've done in the past. It's like I'm respecting you as a human being face to face, and I'm going to respect your time. I'm going to respect your judgment, and that respect comes into play with like how we communicate with each other. Not like a little bit less Aretha Franklin, but yeah. So responsible for your own work. I think you don't have to keep the slide up. I don't have any more slides, but as we said, this comes into play in particular. It's extra important for remote work. We're not in the same office space. So like I said, we can't just get that feel for our people getting work done. Are they doing purposeful work, which is our second value? Like, are they doing it the way we would do it? The communication isn't happening just accidentally because of proximity. We're online. So we talk about it in a couple ways. Like when we say people have to pull work from us. So if you think of like Kim and I at the top of the hierarchy, and we have some managers, like we want employees that will reach up and be like, what can I do? Do you think any of these three things are things I can do? What about this thing? I saw this. I just happen to be watching the other channels, even though they're not related to me, in our Slack. And I saw this, maybe I could do this. I'm keeping tabs on the issue. So when people are proactive about their work and they're pulling work from us and they ask the manager, hey, is it okay if I work on this? That's like an ideal situation. And we have systems in place that we figure out. We call it Shape Up. We'll do lots of videos on that, where we're figuring out what work to like push down to folks. So there's like work that gets pushed down, but it's really important that the people show up and pull work from us. And like another aspect of that is before you get that, like a concrete example of pulling work. I'll restate something I said a little bit earlier. If someone, say a developer, finishes their job and they have some time left in the day, they're supposed to go to their manager and recommend, here's 3 possible things that I could work on. And then with the manager, prioritize like which of those should they do and, in what order, basically. And that puts the pressure of figuring out what to work on in that situation on the employee themselves and not on the manager. Because what happens if you go to your manager and say, hey, I'm done, is there anything I can work on? The manager also has work that they're doing. They're helping other people. They're doing their own work. And then they have to figure out, how do I, occupy this person's time? And they usually don't come up with the best work. If you're in the mindset of like, it's your responsibility to find good work to do, like you'll find better work to do. And also just have funner time at work, because you'll have some say in the work that you're doing. So we look for folks like that. And then, so another piece of this, related to remote work and in general, is over communicating. So I often say this to folks when they first come on. I say it probably multiple times through Slack and conversations, that I've never, given the feedback to someone that they've been bugging me too much, that they've direct messaged me too much, that they, whatever, like, yeah, that they've messaged me too much, that they've asked me too much, that they've, asked for too many meetings. Like I've never had that feedback that someone's asking too much, because at this business, there's a lot going on. I'm kind of bouncing around and you need people to get my attention. So if they kind of send me one message and I miss it, send a follow-up message. Hey, did you see my message? We need to talk. And so I always encourage people to over communicate. And this is different for different managers. They have different systems and maybe they push back, but I think it's pretty similar across the team that you have to over communicate in this remote environment where we're texting through Slack, because that's like showing up to the office. And you can get in a state where like we have employees and like, what if they even have they been working? And you might have been working heads down on really important stuff off screen and no one knows about it. But like, if you're not posting we have daily stand-ups. If you're not posting really good detailed stand-ups, which might feel like busy work, but it's kind of like, that's how your managers and other people on the team know what you're doing. If you're not doing that, and if you're not, over communicating in situations and pulling, you have a question, like demand an answer, it just looks like you're not in the office, even though you might be working. And this is like the nature of remote work. So we just over communicate, basically. And so an example of this, like a specific example, is it happens in support. So if you open a ticket with our technical support team and it's very technical, like something's broken and we have to pull in a developer, we call that escalating the ticket to a developer. The original support agent is still assigned to that ticket and responsible to the customer for getting back to them. So they don't hand off the responsibility to the developer and say, oh, I'm done. All right, I did it. I escalated. My job's done. They stay involved in the ticket, and it's their responsibility to both keep bugging the developer until they get a response and also keep the customer up to date on what's happening. So if it takes like multiple days to fix something, every day they should be chiming back to that ticket and saying, hey, here's where we're at on this. I'll find out today. Here's where we're at with this, that kind of a thing. And so that's an example of how this being responsible for our own work, over communicating and trying to like pool the work in situations when we're working, like comes into play specifically with how we, interact with our customers. Cool. Any other questions? I'll move on.
No, not right now.
Okay. So another way that this core value of being responsible for our own work comes up is in how we interact with the other products and plugins and businesses in the WordPress space. Like WordPress as a platform is open source and configurable, and you can run add-ons and plugins and tweak it to do different things. And I forget, but I always estimate that like, it could be wrong. I think we tasked someone with figuring this out, so I don't have good numbers. We should get them. But I would throw out, and maybe it's directionally correct. In our support, like 20% of the time, it's actually our fault or our issue. Like, oh, this is like a bug. This is something that, we did wrong. And something like 80% of the time, it's like user error, another plugin broke. It has to do with their host. And this is just the nature of the product. Like we don't have control over their whole platform. And, I don't know, there's this type of integration issue that happens and stuff breaks. And we have to work with the, other people writing code and running them on these websites to write our code in a certain way to make it not step on each other's toes and work together. Anyway, and when that happens, like I said, we don't push back and say, you should go talk to them just to save us time so we can close the ticket. We really take responsibility for that ticket and say, this is our customer using Paid Memberships Pro. And even though maybe like what we think is the core issue is someone else's code, it's our responsibility to help that customer navigate this to get the right code. I think I just tapped
You lost your camera.
Yeah, how do I get it back?
Oh,
here we go. I got talking with my hands on my desk. So yeah, we're taking responsibility. All of our customers, when they have support issues, we want them to come to us. This is one of the ways that we surface these issues. We don't know that you're using XYZ theme and that has an issue with our plugin. So we actually appreciate that this gives us a chance to figure out how to make it work. And sometimes we fix those compatibilities on our side by kind of avoiding their thing. And sometimes, like I said, we reach out behind the scenes and tell these other product teams, hey, we found an issue. This is what you should probably do to fix it potentially. Yeah, so it's like taking responsibility. And I think our customers appreciate that I often say with our support in general, we're a little slow. So we take off on the weekends. That's part of being human. Like we're not here on the weekends. And that's tough. A lot of our customers are kind of weekend warriors and they're like in the middle of it on the weekend. But at our size and the way we want to run a team, we kind of can't overlap and manage to hand off from weekends to not and keep the same quality of work that we're doing. So we're not working weekends and we're getting back within a business day. So we're like a little bit slower to get back. We don't overstaff and then have people right back to you, within a minute or 30 minutes, even something like that. But what we do is when we take those tickets, when they come in and we do get to it, we go deep and we take full responsibility. And our goal is to help this person through this issue and have the outcome that they need and get it resolved. And I think we go deeper than most companies on the support side. Like we're willing to dig in, write custom code, fix other products issues. I would say like it's easy. If all we said was yes or no, it'd be real easy to just staff people to read tickets and say yes or no. But we actually have to follow up and do work on each ticket. And so we work a little slower, but we go a little deeper.
Kim also made a comment about development and our responsibility. She said we run a lot of in-development code and versions of PMPro on our live site. It's a bit wild, but it's our responsibility to put things through the ringer.
Yeah. I was thinking about this. We're doing this now with, we use the Stripe gateway and we're updating the version of the Stripe API that we use in Paid Memberships Pro. And we try to plan for it and look at the code and make it work. But of course, sometimes there's issues like either the API is not documented or we just kind of happen to miss something that changed. And the only way to really know if this is working is to use it on real sites. And so, yeah, we like use our own site as a guinea pig. Now we're sensitive about security and privacy of our customers. So we're definitely not shipping code that potentially is going to cause issues in that way, but issues that might break a checkout, we run them on our own site and we experience them before, our customers do. And honestly, I don't know how other software products operate when they don't. It's called Dogfooding, where you use your own product on your own website or your own service, your own business. But we've been doing that from the beginning, selling Paid Memberships Pro, using the Paid Memberships Pro software, and building out even our support system on top of the, Paid Memberships Pro community features and things like that. So, and it's interesting to us as we've had the need to build a course, then we use some of the different courseware options in our courses plugin, and we're like, oh, we should make it better. As we started doing abandoned carts and more specific follow-ups for, when people have failed payments, doing like not just a generic follow-up, but like a better email to try to win back that customer. Like those are things that we have to do ourselves, and then we figure out how to do it, and all that stuff, results in a better product. And kind of time and time again, we'll see like an issue come up in an add-on, and it's been a bug for like 3 years and no one noticed. And probably a bunch of users noticed, then they just thought, it's broken, I'm not using it. But it's kind of when we start to use it, we're like, wait, no one noticed that was an issue. And so I don't know. It's funny. I don't know how other products, I think other products just have these hidden bugs because they're not using them themselves. Like, I don't know if any amount of unit testing and, other testing and having user groups and all this stuff really can honestly surface these issues in the same way that using the product yourself surfaces it. So.
And even from the marketing side, I mean, because that's like more of the development side of like finding the bugs and stuff, but even from the marketing side and in the sales inbox answering questions, I feel like it gives our team a leg up because we use the system that we're trying to sell. Like it's not a black hole for us. We not only can write the documentation about it, but we actually use it. And when we try to follow our own documentation and it doesn't make sense, it's like, oh, we need to fix this. Because if we can't figure it out and we use it and we built it, then, John Smith can't either.
Right. And we make very subtle decisions about user experience and design and which features and which things are settings and which things are optional. And the best way to make an informed decision about all that stuff is to actually be using it ourselves. And that makes us, like you said, better listeners when we hear ideas from folks. So that's some of how taking responsibility in like the development process works. I want to give it like another hardcore example of how this has come up recently inside the business. This comes up a lot when things are failing, when people are making mistakes, when people aren't getting the work done that they're supposed to be getting done. And so in the spirit of like calling myself out recently, a situation came up between Kim and I. So we're launching a new hosting product, and we have a lot of folks on the team working on different aspects of it. Ukesh on our team now is working on the sysadmin side, getting the server set up, and Dale is building a migration tool to help the sites migrate. And different folks, including Sam and Kim, are reaching out to potential customers of the hosting product and bringing them on board and selling to them basically. And there's a couple customers that have agreed to come onto the platform. So we're early days. We're just getting the first, 5 to 10 customers in, and they're ready to go. And there's two things holding up actually moving someone's site to the system. It was one, writing the terms of service for, now that we have a hosting product, there's different, I did the thumb thing on my Mac. Updating our terms of service to mention this hosting product and the specific, legal relationship around hosting someone's website versus just giving someone PMPro as a plugin. So we had to get that nailed so that then when people sign a contract and pay for the hosting service, like we're on the same page that, hey, we're hosting your site and here's like, don't abuse it. You'll get kicked off for these reasons. This is how we do refunds, that kind of a thing. So this was on my desk. I was the bottleneck. And this happened, like business owners or different managers, people are bottlenecks for work. And Kim, in this case, even though she's the owner of the business, had to take the next step in onboarding someone. And she's like, I need to send them the code to sign up, but I can't because the terms of service isn't in place. And probably like for a day or maybe more, she's like, hey, I think she did more. It was like over the weekend it started. Hey, make sure you have the terms of service in place. It was like, cool, I got it. Didn't get to it. It's a combination of being busy, with work and life stuff. And then also maybe overthinking it. Like I'm thinking in my head, it's a really big deal to potentially host someone's website. You're responsible for a lot. It's if they're doing criminal activity, like are we responsible for the stuff and what do we do? And what exactly do we define? Like where do we draw the line? And because we want to shut them off, and when we shut them off, what do we do? Like that kind of a thing. Or just to be clear, like we're responsible for this, you're responsible for that. So it was important. I'm thinking this through in my head and taking notes, but I hadn't actually produced the output. And then Kim just sat down and started writing it. And she, because I was around, she was able to quiz me. She's like, why haven't you published this? What were you thinking? I was thinking this. I was thinking this. I was going to look at this company's host terms of service and pull from that. Here's another thing that we wrote up internally. And Kim pulled it into, pull that stuff in the ChatGPT. This is maybe an AI hack trick too, in the details of how she did it. She pulled it in the ChatGPT, all my random notes, had ChatGPT ask her questions, and then kind of propose a draft. And then this is like a writing hack. If you get a bad first draft, then it like forces you to fix it. And you can really like get over the hump of getting something done. But Kim spent the morning, taking all our random notes, running them through, and actually producing an output that's like a serviceable first version of our terms of service so that we can pull people on board. I guess the key point for this discussion is she took responsibility. Like, she had to do this. She had to bring on people on board. And in some environment, like, it's Jason's fault. And actually, like, he's co-owner of the business. Imagine if it's Kim in this case, which is interesting. She's my wife and co-owner, but it could have been any other random employee like in the business has to do something, but they're waiting on the owner to get something done. And it's like the best excuse in the world. Like, I didn't do that because I was waiting on you. You were the bottleneck. And when you're in that situation, like, we want folks to, hey, is there anything I can do about this? I could write a draft for them. I could ask them. And this happens. David Parker on our development team has gotten really good at this. Where, like, when I'm assigned like there's certain programming tasks that are either related to our website or kind of pulling in a bunch of the old code that I wrote myself. So it's kind of like it makes sense for Jason to do this work. Here's a theme here. Jason is not getting his work done. In their case where I'm not getting my work done, David's like, hey, is there a way that I can help with this? Can you do the equivalent of this? Like, dump into me what you were thinking really quick, and then I'll take a stab, and then you could look at what I'm doing, and then we can work at it. Like, what can I take off your plate? People can take that away, like in your management. Like, I think you're not going to necessarily go far if you're kind of like, I didn't get my work done because of these other things, and expect that, putting other people down is going to bring you up in your work. What you can do is, what can I take off your plate so that you can do that thing you had to do? What can I do instead? Can I just rough it with like a dirty version or the draft version, or can I move ahead without that piece? And actually, you'll find, like, you'll kind of push people to action. You're like, okay, I'm going to publish a blog post without this thing I asked you for. Wait, that kind of a thing. So yeah, this is like handling bottlenecks in the business. This value often comes into play. And some other examples of, just like when folks are messing up, what do we do? Sometimes, I'm trying to think of like a example to make it more concrete. If, what's a good one? Oh, here's one that kind of came up. We have a new manager on the team, and we have daily stand-ups, and which is literally in a Slack channel, a thread comes up and says, hey, what are you doing today? And folks say, here's like what I did or what I'm about to do. It's like what I got done, what I'm thinking to do, and then blockers, like, I can't do this thing. It's a bottleneck. I need help with this thing. Or I ran into this interesting problem. I need feedback. And then for every stand-up, there's a manager that, is responsible for running the stand-up. And this one's tricky because it's pretty flexible. We're a generally flat team, and particularly around development stuff, David Parker on our team, Andrew Lima, and myself, we're all at various times responsible for managing that stand-up. Or if someone goes on vacation, someone else is filling in, and it's kind of, honestly, when the team's operating well, like, it's almost unnecessary. Like, we do write to the stand-up, and it's a good log for the manager and for myself to, like, look in and be like, okay, I can see, like, at a glance the work that's getting done, but there's not like a lot of work actually happening in that stand-up itself, but it's still like an important role. So I asked the new manager, hey, manage the stand-up for this one channel. And to me, it didn't seem like it was getting done. And so then I had to be more clear, like, hey, this is what so this is the example. Something's happening. I asked the manager to do something, and it didn't get done. And I borrowed this this method from Alex Ramosi. He has a business, a video on this. And when you ask someone to do something on your team and they didn't get it done, there's like 3 reasons why they didn't do it. So one reason is you didn't communicate it. They didn't know they were supposed to do it. And then another reason is that they didn't know how to do it. And then a third reason is they weren't motivated to do it. They didn't want to do it. So in this case, I'll go into each case. So I asked the manager, hey, will you run the stand-up in the sysadmin channel? Maybe it wasn't communicated. It might not have been communicated well. So I definitely said, do that. But I say a lot of things, and this is it's kind of a joke on the team too. Is like, I ramble, we're having back and forth. I'll throw out 5 things. And then Sam, you do this well with me now too.
You have to be a pro at picking out what Jason wants to actually action from the rambles.
Yeah. Right. Which of those 5 things was I actually supposed to do? Because I can only do like a couple of them. How important was? Did you mean do that like right now, or do that in general? Because I'm a visionary. I'm thinking towards the future. I'm looking out ahead, and some of this stuff isn't actually um, actionable, but it's kind of, I'm planting the seed because eventually we're going to work on this. But then you have to be clear about it. But also, like, I don't know, work is busy. People are going back and forth. Did you catch that? Did you write that in a note? How exactly did I communicate it? Maybe it was like verbally on a call, but maybe he didn't hear it. I've been having bad internet reception like here, so maybe like he literally didn't hear it on a call. So I was like, hey, I have to communicate. So I thought, hey, maybe I didn't communicate it well. So I'd send a DM. Hey, I'm trying to be clear. This is what I meant. And then, by the way, we have an SOP on what it means to manage, a stand-up. And so that's the second part of the triangle, was like, maybe he said manage the stand-up, but he didn't know what that meant. And I think, honestly, in this case, that's what's happening. Like, these team members are working so close. They're like on the phone on, Google Meets multiple hours a day, probably working on things. And so it's like, why, like, we're on the same call. Like, we had to stand up in person. Like, we're not writing it down. And so then it's like, oh, but we have this SOP, like, write it down. Cause it's not just important for you guys talking to each other, but for the managers to be able to see what's happening. So that's like, maybe he didn't know what to do, he didn't know that he was supposed to write it down, make sure that you have like a good SOP in place and the person is trained on how to do it. And then third, like, maybe he wasn't motivated to do it. This is, sometimes there's folks like, that sounds good, but I don't think that's useful. At my old job, I used to do it this way. I think we should do it this way. And this is where like maybe respect comes in. It's like, well, we have a SOP and this is how we do it. So you got to respect the SOP. And there is a place, like, maybe we're doing it wrong. Like, the SOPs keep getting updated, but there's kind of a process and a respect. It should be if there's like sometimes like that's a challenge. It's kind of, and that's good. Like, good. It's like a lot of friction, but good stuff comes out of it. Sometimes it's like on the other side, the employee's like, oh, I get it now. It's our job to communicate. Here's why it's like, for example, you felt like you didn't have to do it because you were already on the call with him, but I check in on that as well. And that's how I get my update. Oh, okay. So I'll do it anyway, even though, like, so I wasn't motivated to do it. I didn't think there was any reason, but now I understand the reason. Anyway, so that's like an example of how to navigate this. I asked someone to do something and they didn't do it, which is just, it comes up in so many different ways in the business, and it's being responsible for your own work and practice. Cause a lot of that is me as a manager saying, here's how the person could do better. I want them to do this thing, but I should take a step whenever something doesn't happen. It's like, what did I do? What could I have done differently to communicate it better, to make sure they knew how to do it, to make sure they were motivated to do it? Like, what's my responsibility? And this thing didn't get done, but as their manager, what's my responsibility for why it didn't get done? And that happens also with like customers and business partners as well. Something didn't happen with a customer, or like in our software, like stuff breaks. There's like, hey, did you not see the notice that said this was going to delete everything when you click the delete button? And they're like, oh, that's like, it's user error. Never mind. I'm not going to worry about it. But we actually take that feedback. Wait, slow down. What could we make the notice bigger? Is it the notice in the wrong space? Does it like we send too many notices so they don't understand which ones are important? Like, we slow down and take feedback. Like, how can we be responsible for this thing that seemed like user error, but actually we make the product. We could avoid the user error. And we spend a surprising amount of time, like, we call these things like admin assist issues, where it's like, how do we keep our users from like shooting themselves in their foot, breaking their site, making bad choices, doing things that are gonna, getting out of line. And even though it's like, hey, it's your site, you're responsible. Like, what can we do to make it better? Is, something that we're always thinking about.
Trap the Thunder says SOPs protect all parties, and I could not agree more, because it's like, for me, it's my responsibility as a manager to make sure that I have SOPs around my supporting staff's work. But then at the same time, the supporting staff can 100% come back to me and say, well, that's not even in the SOP. So how was I supposed to know? Like, it goes both ways.
Yeah, this is subtle. We got to figure this out. By the way, SOP stands for Standard Operating Procedure, and there's different names for that. Task list, checklist. I don't know. Different businesses call them different things. I guess something else I wanted to say about managing, and this is kind of a lesson that comes up, and it's interesting. I'm talking about this like middle manager where I expect a lot, but in reality, this being responsible for your own work allows us to have a relatively flat team. Like we have about 20 people, and Kim and I and Andrew are directing, and there's a handful of managers responsible for marketing, sales, development, support. And they're responsible for the work. We say they're using like the EOS system. They're accountable for that work. Like if something doesn't get done in the support, it's kind of like the point of contact for figuring out who's responsible. So I'm talking about management. This allows us to have a relatively flat team. And some advice I'm often giving to managers, because it comes as a surprise to them when they're new in particular, is like a breakdown of when you're working with someone beneath you. Like I said, we focus a lot about what's the work I'm pushing to them. I'm telling them what to do. And that is about 60% of the work of the manager is figuring out what to tell the other people to do. But then like 30% of the work is working alongside those people below you, because you're helping them improve. You're like showing them, if you're, doing development, you're kind of, let's code this together so you can learn, how I code at least, and we kind of get on the same page and improve your skills. Let's write this blog post together. Let's make this video together. Let's hop on a call and walk through this thing together. 30% of your time should be doing stuff together. And then 20% of your time is you're actually doing work for them. So like, this is the one that's like often like, oh, wait, what? And we like managers who have this mindset, and maybe manager actually is like the bad term, because like our managers do stuff. They're not just managing. Like, I think we don't ever want to have like managers that are just in the middle and managing people and not doing anything else. It's not really adding to the system. If the people are responsible for their own work and they're communicating, like we're running the processes, we'll get stuff done. But if you are managing someone else's work, it's like you're supporting them as well. So it's like they're not just like your peons to do work for you. Like you're responsible to help them do better. And so sometimes we're, doing the equivalent of cleaning out the bathrooms for our team so that they can do the high productive work, get other stuff out of their way.
Yeah, I specifically do that just as an example in the sales inbox. There are times where Onsi does a lot of the account related inquiries. So she's handling like failed payment outreaches and abandoned cart and refunds and all of that. And those are high value, really important. They help our revenue. And so if she doesn't have time to actually answer the basic sale inquiries, that's when I jump in and kind of do like the grunt work, of answering those emails so she can continue on her high level work that actually makes it, true impact.
Yep. Any questions here? I have the final thing I want to talk about was how, I call this core value the most important one, because if something's wrong, this is the one that you use to fix it. So maybe we could talk about like how we do feedback, and what do you call it? Like employee reviews and evaluations here. We don't do them anymore, right? That's how we do it. We don't. It's like an important part of like a lot of jobs and businesses, and definitely huge businesses. They do 360 reviews, or they have different names for them, different procedures, and it's kind of like, are you meeting the standards? So we borrowed the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, informed a lot of how we came up with these core values, and they prescribe like a really simple review system, which is at some time frame, quarterly or annually, you can review people on these values. Like, does Sam exhibit, you can put the values on the screen, maybe, the
I was
values
the guinea pig on this.
Purposeful work. Yeah, actually, you were one of the ones. We did it with the management team first, and then we were like, we actually don't want to do this. It just makes people feel bad. So I could have graded Sam like plus or minus or medium. You're like, are they meeting expectations, exceeding, or below? And then if they're below expectations on something, like I think EOS prescribes like, that's okay for 1, but 2 is bad or something, it's kind of like makes it mathematical for left brain people. But what we found doing those reviews was like, man, it just stresses Sam out. And Sam's like one of our best employees, an overachiever. And a useful part of these reviews that we try to fit back into the one-on-ones is like the self the self-evaluation reflection, and always your best employees will be harshest with themselves. So like if you're like, grade your marketing ability on like 1 to 10, Sam's like, I'm a 5. And then someone who's like underperforming be like, I'm a 9. I'm badass. I'm awesome. I don't have to change anything. So there's also like this like weird dichotomy of, or not dichotomy, but like, it's ironic that the people who are doing best are going to be hardest on themselves. And it'll be like a, not necessarily a good indicator, some of the feedback you get out, like mathematically from systems like this. But what we do, so we don't have regular reviews. And, if we did, they would try to map to the core values. We definitely hire on the core values. Like all of our interview questions, like which core value is this assessing? And that's way more important than any kind of like, do you know this thing that I think you should know? It's kind of like, can try to suss out through stories. Like, how do you work? If you're in a situation where someone wasn't doing something for you, like, would you be Spider-Man and point, or would you like point at yourself and try to figure out how you could help, Anyway, so what we do is have performance improvement plans that come up, like if someone is kind of missing the mark, and this is kind of ad hoc. We all just feel it. It comes up when we kind of review in the management meetings, people are underperforming, and it's kind of like, what's going on? And then we say, what could we do? It's us. What could we do about it? We're responsible for it too. And it's like, oh, the support team isn't hitting their targets. Like, do they know that's their target? Do they have the ability to hit that target? Are we measuring it well? And they're like, oh no, actually we need to give them tools to do better. And like, sometimes the answer is us, like we're failing our team. And sometimes it's like, no, actually maybe it's just this person isn't showing up or something's going wrong. And if we start the performance improvement plan, it kind of almost always, like when we're like, hey, they're not, we think they're not doing purposeful work. That when they choose what work to do, they do stuff. And then so often the work comes to us and we don't, I can't use this. You should have probably talked to a developer. They're doing something similar. And this overlaps with this other effort. It's probably under communicating. You should have been over communicating. We would have caught this sooner and like directed you in a more purposeful direction on the stuff you're doing. So maybe there's like that problem, but there's almost always like this being responsible for your own work is also a problem. Cause this is the lever that you fix things with. Like if you think you're a 9 out of 10 on everything or a 10 out of 10 and there's no room for improvement, when you get that performance improvement plan that says, hey, here's how you're not working up to expectations within your team. Here's how it's related to the core values. If you just get defensive and think, well, like it's your fault, what could you do better? Like you need this gear to be like, shoot, what could I do better? How could I make this better? And for sure, like we want to be open, and sometimes people push back and they're like, hey, by the way, like this thing that you think I messed up, actually I didn't. Sometimes we learn like, oh crap. Yeah, good. Actually, I appreciate your input here, Sam.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, like, I actually think this is probably one of the ones that I hold like the strongest, not even just in work life, but also in personal life too. But like, Jason, Kim and I met a few weeks ago, and wasn't anything bad, but I took so much responsibility that I was hard on myself, because Jason and Kim were both like, no, we love you. You do great work. We want you to do more work. Like, it's amazing. But I took it so much on myself that I was literally in tears on a meeting because I took so much responsibility.
Come work for us.
It's just the one that like I grasp onto. Maybe I need less responsibility.
That's an interesting thing about like how, if this ever goes too far in the other direction, because you can't, like, this does happen sometimes. We as managers, like I say, what's our responsibility for this? But it becomes enabling at some point. We're like, oh, I realize that whenever this person who's supposed to do this task, this is not the story with Sam, by the way, anymore. This person's supposed to do this task, they fail, but then we come in and save them. But like, what are we teaching them? That we're always there to pick up the slack, and like it becomes enabling. And I know employees don't like when you do like parental analogies, and kids don't like when you do business analogies, but there is an analogy there between like with your kids of like, are you enabling them by kind of always swooping in and being responsible? You have to give them room to make mistakes and touch the stove. And we do that too, like with development. It's kind of like push a release, and it's like, go ahead, like, go ahead, push the release. And it's like, we reviewed it or did the things, but like, I didn't necessarily do as tight a review as I would have if I was the one pushing the button to send the release. And then We let people experiment with add-ons before they're pushing like core releases and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, I shipped the bug. And it's like, okay, well, now what do you do to fix it? Like if we would have just been on top of it and, not giving people room to kind of experience some of the pain and friction. But yeah, we need folks who take responsibility for their own work and the mistakes they have, or like if they're not meeting the expectations, it's like, hey, could we be clear about the expectation? And then like, what was going on? Because we can't solve it for people on their own. Like a lot, I don't know what percentage, but half of it we can. It's the environment, it's who they're working with, it's the systems we're putting in place, it's the way we're communicating with them. But half of it is them. Like they have to show up and do the thing. And if they're not willing to, then if there is a problem with one of these other values and how it's being reflected in the work, I find it's kind of, those are the performance improvement plans that kind of, this is just a first step in someone eventually being let go or leaving. The performance improvement plans that are awesome are when you're like, hey, by the way, this is the expectation you're not meeting. And usually there's like, before it's an official plan, there's many conversations. And it's just, that's why I said we have a meeting and we're like, maybe we didn't communicate it to them well. And it's like, well, the best way to communicate is to write it in a formal plan. And spell it out for them. And so if we do that, the people who are responsible are like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. This is on me. And maybe they have some like, by the way, but you didn't notice, like, I don't know, here's a message where I was trying to address this and blah, blah, or something. I don't know. It was like, but it's definitely on me. I should have been communicating better. I should, and how are you going to fix it? And then we're always there, like, and we follow up week to week and then month to month. Like, how's it going? Is there anything we can do to help you like meet these goals? Because we want our team to be productive as well.
Yeah, it's also like not even so much of, taking responsibility for the work is really important, but it's also taking responsibility for yourself. And so, like, even if something that is less than awesome in our one-on-one meetings or something that needs to be addressed, a lot of times you don't get that defensive reaction that people normally would give you about critiquing something of like, hey, I think you could really do better in this area. In the outside world, that's what I get from like everybody else. But on the team, it's they know that they're responsible for themselves. And it's not so much of a defense, but it's how can I improve? And as a manager, it's how can I be there for you? What can I do better? And how can we be successful together? And there is no that immediate like fight or flight that, needs that defense right there.
We're like folks who see issues and overcome them and don't dwell on the past. And it, sometimes we say too, like it comes up in like negative reviews and feedback. There's like when you have a support ticket afterwards, like, hey, was this good or bad? I forget exactly how it's phrased, but you can be like, no, this was terrible support. And we process that feedback. And I'm always reminding the team that like, we don't track this number and use it to evaluate the support team. Like the fact that you had a support ticket and someone said it was bad, the math of that is not like, doesn't show up in how we think. Now, it is a good flag to take a look at the ticket. And then like, sometimes it is something we did. And then like, we're always in the mindset, hey, like, here's an issue. You could have done better in this way. But then also we do the feedback, like this person's just upset and we couldn't have done anything about it. Like we process it. And so like, we get this feedback, we see these issues, we process them and we move forward. And yeah, it's good when we're not like competitive with each other. The small team can just keep getting stuff done and they're not fighting and trying to point fingers and get things done. And then I think it's on us. The flip side of that is if you are too laissez-faire about stuff, then you get low performers and they drag down the performance of the team. So it's on us as Kim and I in particular, and Andrew is like hiring and managing the team, is how can we like insulate our high performers from low performers and make sure that we don't just have people who are like getting a free ride. Everyone else is responsible for their work and they're just quietly in the corner doing nothing. So we have to, pull people, make sure that everyone's, doing well. So that, people and always improving. I think I like Lifter has a core value called like continuous improvement that is kind of related to this. And we often say we have a couple of hidden core values that like do better, which is like a little bit of a saying. It's kind of like, this is the thing we could have done better, like do better. Which is harsh, but like it's like, I don't know, such an in joke that it's like a shorthand that we know that what we mean by that we're all focused on helping everyone do better. And as long as that's happening,
even better.
Yeah. This could be even better. Yeah. All right. Any questions or?
Well, there's nobody that's popping up with questions.
Sweet.
If you want to open the live event page on your window, I can share that. We can talk about what's coming up next before we sign off.
Yep.
I do know if you want to go to the calendar tab, actually.
Cool.
Yeah, there we go. So our next event is actually going to be a community meetup, which I'm actually reframing to be community co-working hour. So that is exclusive to our Slack community. If you're not in our Slack community, I recommend you joining. I will drop the link for you on how to join. But we hold those co-working hours twice a month. This one is going to be at the 3:30 p.m. Eastern hour. And really, it's just a time to come hang out with Kim Coleman and I and work on your membership site, your project, whatever that might be. So that'll be fun. And then the next event is a coding with Not Sam. That one on Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, my counterpart in marketing, our coordinator, Christy is going to come on and actually be me because I will be on the beach. So we're going to give her a shot at coding with Sam and explaining something for you guys. I'm going to give her a softball on the coding recipe that she's going to do.
Yeah. Coding with Christy has a nice alliteration to it,
It does.
And sunning with Sam? No. Get an update from the beach. Cool.
So that'd be fun. And then our next open office hours is the 21st. We're continuing this Built on Values series. We did touch on respect a little bit in relation to responsibility, but the next one is going to be respect in practice on the 21st. Yeah.
That'll be fun. And then I'd like to call out, what's the URL for this? paidmembershipspro.com/hosting. We're taking applications for hosting customers. If you like what you've heard here and feel like this is the team that's going to take responsibility for my website and make sure it's maintained and as performant as possible, and recover from issues as fast as possible, you can go to paidmembershipspro.com/hosting and apply now. If this is the future, maybe you can just, sign up. There'll always be some kind of application. We're looking for both existing and new membership sites. If you are using Paid Memberships Pro or you are considering it strongly, like you will, we'll set up like the perfect environment to get started on. And this is a result of us being responsible for our own work in a sense, and that we realize that we already host our own website and we've had to make it, as performant as possible. And we do this well. And I think we can serve our customer. Other hosts are really great. They do a lot of things well, but like the type of hosting that we do, that how transparent it's going to be, how flexible it's going to be, and how kind of custom tuned it is for Paid Memberships Pro. And you won't, when you come to our support and something's happening on your website is running slow, we won't tell you to get a different membership plugin for sure. We'll say, hey, yeah, you're using Paid Membership. Here's some other real things you can do to get a more performant website. And what's awesome about this is, like, as we're building out this hosting platform already, and more so going forward, it's improving our product. So it's like how these things kind of feedback on each other is really good. Now that we have multiple sites running on Paid Memberships Pro, we're doing performance improvements that we used to just tape over with money. So it's kind of like just spend more for a faster server, done. It's like for us as one business, just pay an extra $100 a month. and we don't have to develop something. But now we're kind of digging into these performance things. We've always done a lot of that, but there's on the cutting edge of things to make your sites run as quickly as possible and be as secure as possible. We're doing that work, and you can benefit from it directly at the full stack, not just as a plugin if you are hosted on our setup. So paymerchantspro.com/hosting, apply.
And the Plus license is included in the hosting plan, so you can consolidate your business expenses into at least one less bill.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is a win. Who wants extra bills?
Should be a no-brainer for folks. All right. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sam.
Well, that's it. We will see you next time. I hope everybody joins for Coding with Christy and give her an amazing audience for next Friday. Thank you, everybody.
See ya.